What's up, everybody? Okay. Like Dave said, we've got a collaborative piece going on right now. But let me give a shout out to everybody on the Hawaii Review staff and Jamie for setting off the MIA series. It's awesome. Can I get a round of applause? They're all awesome. Please give them a hot. Okay. I've been welding a lot lately. When I do, I tend to nick my fingers on sharp edges of sheet metal. Working on a 42-year-old car will do that. Well, that I need to use my leather gloves more. I squint through my auto-darkening lens and pull the trigger. The bluish flash of light comes from the arm to join two separate pieces of metal in that instant. I've noticed the substrate does not matter. Both metal and fiction are collaborative endeavors. Anyone who welds will say that if the individual pieces are already strong, the resulting structure will be that much easier to work. My reaction to Christina's piece was made easier by her writing. While we both speak of trauma in our work, Christina's characters come alive through the rise of that trauma. There is light in her piece, a light that comes from her effective storytelling. Anyone who welds will bleed, and we bleed for every word.
So I also wanted to thank everyone in Hawaii Review. Actually, oh my God, can I please wish that I could ever play or sing that well? Especially Angelia and David, thank you, and Jamie, of course, and Donovan and Lou and Kelsey and everyone. Fantastical. I just wanted to give you a little, I feel like this is too talky, a little background on how me and Ken met. We met in graduate school, and I immediately, along with Anjali, had a writer's crush on him. Like, we were like in the back of the classroom going, oh, Ken, oh my God. Seriously, am I right? Yes. His way with dialogue and imagery, along with his narrative arc, made an impression on me, a local writer who had never really explored place-based writing. As you may know, Ken sometimes writes in pidgin, and workshopping his pieces often struck me with awe because of his adeptness in grounding the reader without alienating her. Ken's worlds are delicately wrought despite a tough exterior or an uncomfortable situation. He bleeds for you, his reader, so that you can glimpse a reality that is closer than you think, and so possible. And yet, in considering this reality, you, the reader, feel something that is powerful, vulnerable, and yet unsentimental. His characters are sentient, real, truthful, and I certainly aspire to find my authentic voice by imitating his effortlessness. Also, Ken molded his piece to mine, so I didn't really have to do any work. Ours are two separate short stories. Mine is about a family who goes crayfishing and finds that the activity brings them together. His piece is about a family that crayfishes together, but sinister dynamics are revealed through their thoughts and actions. So ours are opposites. Light and dark, expansion and contraction, love and hate. Both of our pieces feature two siblings, a brother and a sister, and both feature non-traditional families, a step-parent and a father in mine, and a grandfather in his. And this reading juxtaposes our stories into a mashup to emphasize the call and responsiveness of the pieces together. I encourage you to purchase or take one of those copies home and read them separately, and see if the parallels highlighted in this reading are as pronounced as when you read the texts alone. Okay, so here goes. Daddy, I need bait, she repeats until he obeys, crouching next to her. The boy squats next to him, studying exactly how it's done, asking to do it next time. Iako slices squid on a white styrofoam tray, disposable gloves keeping the rotten stench of fish off his skin. He ties the end of her line, and it's hard to tell his fingers from the fleshy stuff.
A long time ago, a girl looked into a plastic white bucket. Spindly legs scraped against the sides. The old man with her grumbled to himself. A boy skipped rock rocks across the murky water, trying to hit the old tire sticking out of the creek. Don't do that, the old man said. Scare up the fish. No good. The old man sat on the edge of the couch. Strings from frayed ends of fabric dipped into wet mud. The old man grumbled something to himself and scooted toward one end. He felt the wire slipping on his sweaty palms. The boy and his sister dropped the bucket near the old man's foot. Brown water splashed up the sides. Carapaces scraped against plastic. Fucking stupid boy, said the old man under his breath. Don't drop the bucket.
Look for the red, he continues. But they're pretty smart, so you'll have to watch them. They'll definitely be watching you.
The old man commanded the children to pick up rocks. Too big, he said when the girl heaved the rock over her head. She dropped it into the edge of the muck, flecks of grime against the skin of her legs. The old man caught himself looking. He grumbled to himself, then turning to the girl. You are dirty now, no good. I can wipe it off, Grandpa, the girl said. Fat kid fingers with chipping Barbie pink nail polish smeared mud off legs. The old man caught himself looking again.
Daddy, Daddy! She dangles the line over the rocks, shaking it as she hops. There is no hook, but the crane has refused to let go. Convinced, Iaco says, as he deftly moves toward her, that someone will steal its food. He's there beside her so fast, gingerly placing the creature in the bucket. Good job, he says, patting her head.
No worry, I'm going to take care of you, he said in her ear. Flies around the rim of the plastic bucket.
This is the first time I have crayfished. The first time I have waded in a stream since I was a girl. And it feels like I have been away from myself. Like I'm returning to a familiar place where I almost belong. I'm bigger now, more awkward, less free. But I know hapu ferns grow close to the banks. Their spiraled fur blooms big and green and spidery. I know impatience, bright pink and purple and orange, have bulbs that pop between my fingers and seeds that fly as the pod springs inside out. I know them as I know myself, and for almost as long.
The old man took one of the big rocks and looked into the bucket. Silhouettes of claws and antennae behind the whiteness of a bucket. Sounds of carapaces scraping reminded the boy of his grandpa's false teeth clicking when he dropped them into the cup in the bathroom. He looked at them.
Alika brings the biggest one yet, his 9-year-old hand only slightly smaller. The last one was bigger, he sighed. The bucket holds almost a dozen crays in a few inches of water. I wonder about recipes. Imagine them simple, salt and peppered, then grilled with chili pepper water. I watch the small ones climb atop the bigger ones, trying to scale their way out, their claws clicking and sliding against the smooth sides. When Alika dangles his over the bucket, a few grab on, weighting his down. Finally, his slips and splashes onto the pile. And I think about how hard it is to be in that position, facing the consequences of not having let go in time.
The crayfish landed on small rocks with a dull thud and scooted toward the safety of the pond. The old man rose up from the creaking couch. A foot dropped onto the creature. Green and gray and red, the girl thought to herself.
When the rain comes, it seems from out of nowhere. Huge drops pelt through the leaves, past the branches, and splatter up from the stream so that we get wet from both directions. I run toward the toppled tree, taking refuge beneath a thicker branched spot. I wave Alika and Ina to come, and they do, cowering on either side of me, clutching to my damp shirt.
The old man grabbed the boy's wrist and smashed the crayfish into his skin. The children screamed.
Don't forget the bucket, I say to Iaco, who turns back and grabs the wire handle, then upends its contents back into the water. Muddy brown is interspersed with flashes of bright red that seem to gash through the falling water like a bucket full of entrails.
You are a girl, he said to the boy. The old man turned to the girl. You good girl. He wiped his hand on his faded jeans and rapped, He ran his fingers through her brown hair, smiling as he did.
Catch and release, he says, to my stunned expression.
The old man handed the boy a big rock. He pointed to the bucket. Smash! Mud and tears and crayfish and guts all over the boy's face. The old man held the girl's hand. "You are good for nothing," the old man said, pointing to the boy's forehead. He took the rock and looked at the boy. "I show you." He dropped the rock into the bucket, each time shells and claws dripping from the bottom.
Plus the family stays together, says Ina.
The old man picked up the rock again. The veins on his hands and the muck of muddy guts reminded the boy of worms that came up after a hard rain. He let the rock fall into the bucket again. The old man coughed and hacked into a low bass tone, then spat. A string of jewel in the afternoon white light wiped on a dirty sleeve. The girl held her hand to her mouth. The old man yanked her arm away from her face and held it. "We go home, Brady." The old man smiled at the girl, still holding her hand.
And the small ones get big, adds Alika.
"Green and gray and red and silver and white," she whispers.
I nod, even though it occurs to me that this was all an exercise in futility, a way to pass the time. And although it's certainly memorable, I wonder about how we've displaced these crays and whether they will ever get back home. But the stream is soft, and the small bodies disperse, skittering and darting under new cliffs. The swirling mud sinks and settles like sand after a wave. Soon there isn't a sign we were even there, except for the weight of our tabbies on the stones. It's as if our afternoon hasn't made the crays smarter, more wary of floating squid on a string. Yaako has given them another day, and for that, I admire and love him a little bit more.
A long time ago, the bed of the truck was bumpy. The boy sniffled, looking at the cab of the truck, and saw how close his sister sat to their grandfather. The boy had always sat between them before. The boy shivered in the cold wind of a San Diego night, looked at the cracked rearview mirror, and cried.